Hello, welcome everyone. We're here today to discuss the growing concern of water preservation here on Long Island. I am Christine Wexler. I'm here at the Montauk Film Festival, and my co-moderator.
My name is Kurt Fuchs, program director of the environmental portion of the Montauk Film Festival. I've been picking up trash since I was able to walk, so lobbied a few times with Surfrider and Ocean Conservancy, and just, love environmentalism.
And we have two extraordinary panelists with us today that I had the fortune to meet. I'd like to introduce Ron Paulson and Molly Graffam.
I've been, active in the environmental field for about 30 years. I was a bayman on the Great South Bay. So I tell people I actually graduated from Great South Bay University.
This is Molly Graffam.
Yes, I'm Molly Graffam. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I've been working with Cornell Cooperative Extension for about 3 years. Started off kind of interested in water quality in general because during my undergrad at Fairfield University, I was on the rowing team and we were rowing from the Norwalk River out to the Long Island Sound every morning. Unfortunately, the Norwalk River was pretty gross. And so I was just started to get interested in how to improve water quality. I decided to do my PhD at Stony Brook University. So I graduated from Stony Brook Marine Science program, and I worked for the Center for Clean Water Technology on their nitrogen removing biofilters. And then I met Ron and was working on permeable reactive barriers with Cornell.
We really appreciate all the efforts for you to be here today. So it's been said that in the Hamptons and Montauk, it's not an area that was meant to be lived in year-round. After more than a year of this global pandemic, really resulting in an increase in population, especially here in Montauk and in the Hamptons, certainly, how has the local environment been affected?
Definitely very connected to our groundwater and surface water systems, and there's no getting around that. What we do right here and even around this building will impact groundwater, and ultimately all groundwater on Long Island discharges to a surface water in time. So there's that's separate, groundwater over there, surface water over there. This is all one big system. And so the loads or the land uses we have greatly affect that groundwater, and ultimately that will affect surface waters.
If you're only monitoring the concentration, but you have an increase in the amount of water that's being used, then the total amount of nitrogen is actually increasing that you're adding to the water table. So it's really important not to just think about concentration and just regulating that, but to also think about how much water we're actually using and how much mass of nitrogen is being added to the groundwater. Because let's say a local pond or a local surface water body that's kind of stagnant, that water is just going to build up with more mass of nitrogen.
Yeah.
And it never gets flushed.
Yeah, in some areas may not be flushed well or may not really flush at all.
Now, have you noticed these levels rising over the past 6 months or the past year?
We have noticed some increases, specifically in the Acabonic area. We've been studying that area for about 5 years. And in this past round of sampling, we noticed almost a 10 milligram per liter increase. So that's maybe a 100% increase. What's important to note is that we've been studying that area for about 5 years. So we knew the baseline. Sure. And now we can see a spike. These long-term studies and monitoring are actually really important so we can notice changes.
Ron, besides the septic systems, what are other everyday uses that we all actually are doing or participating in and not really understanding the effects?
Well, nitrogen's a big issue, especially for our surface water quality. But from a drinking water point of view, there's a whole raft of other contaminants. There's things we call emerging issues or emerging contaminants. The recent one that's drawn a lot of attention is called PFAS, which is perfluorinated carbon compounds that are in firefighting foam, they're in Teflon, they're in your clothes, they're waterproof, they're toothpaste, dental floss, go on the list. And the unfortunate thing with it, the levels that State Health Department has picked is in the parts per trillion, which we never had a drinking water standard in parts per trillion. If you have one of those compounds, they have so many, I'll call them brothers and sisters that go along with them. You might only have 2 parts of this one, but total, if you add all the different degradate, you might have 200 parts. So I think that's why the level is low, partially. But those are products that we accepted for years and years.
Tide, there was certain detergents that were adding to the, it starts with 1,4-dioxane. Yeah, okay.
That's another one in that category.
Right.
You know, it's a solvent stabilizer. It's found in solvents, but it's also in soaps, baby shit,
tons of things.
And that's very conservative once it's in our environment. And some of them very hard to treat.
Is it also West Hampton Air Base, or is it just Bethpage had that issue with the fire foam and?
Well, every airport.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah, doing testing.
You know, airports, firefighting training there. I don't know when, who knew what.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Now, are there any things being developed, other products that they could switch out so they're not using that?
They
Have there been some developments?
got away from the traditional ones, the other foam bases, hopefully well vetted.
Sure.
You know, but it's the world we live. You know, things move very fast. Products come on our market. It might be 10 years to realize,
We're going to be working with Stony Brook soon to look at how the groundwater that's seeping into the surface water with these contaminants, how that might affect the marine life there.
Got to be a direct correlation. So how are the local governments and all, sort of reacting to your research?
Just as an example, there are certain pesticides that you can't use here because we have a sole source aquifer. And so a lot of pesticides are banned on Long Island. Manufacturers, not in all cases, some cases they come around, they get it. And they'll pull it and they'll come up with an alternative. But, most of that, 40 years later or more, has flushed out and left the system. But we're really talking decades.
Recently, we've been doing water body studies where we're using specialized equipment to locate and quantify groundwater seeping into the surface water. There's models that kind of show where we should start to look, but then it's really important to go in with the equipment that we have and get these rates and concentrations at the specific site so we can really start to focus on remediation. Lately, we've been going out to Sagaponack Pond and really studying that area very closely. Unfortunately, we've been finding a lot of nitrate, a lot of nitrogen in the groundwater seeping into the surface water. We are working with the Peconic Land Trust in that area. This is a project that we are working very closely with them on. We've submitted an application to get funding to really look closely at some of the shoreline areas and really focus on remediation. And the remediation can be a variety of different things, but one thing that we're really focused on because we think it's very promising is the permeable reactive barrier. I've studied during my PhD, and that is a barrier that's below ground. It's all below ground, so there are no above ground structures, and it's like intercepting groundwater before it can reach the surface water. And it treats it naturally using natural materials like sand and wood chips and gravel. And it's passive, so there's no energy input after installations. It's very eco-friendly, and the materials can be locally sourced. So we think it's a really promising option.
That's fantastic.
So that's directly related to the new approved Suffolk County septic systems?
These are slightly different, but they all kind of rely on the same idea that we're using microbes that do these reactions that convert the contaminant form of nitrogen into a harmless form of nitrogen. So very similar to the septic treatment, but this is going to be used for groundwater treatment. Yeah, it basically converts nitrate, which can be the contaminant form of nitrogen, into nitrogen gas, which makes up 80% of our atmosphere, and we're breathing right now.
The one that you worked on in the Hampton Bays, how is that? What's the status there?
That one's performing really well. We're really happy with the results that we see there. We've monitored it several times now since it was installed last year. It's removing nitrogen before it enters Shinnecock Bay, so we're really happy with that system.
Is it like an object or is it like a trench?
So this one that was installed at Hampton Bays is more like a trench, but we do have a couple different configurations, and we're actually working on really improving the installation method so that it can be cost efficient and still, performing really well. So the one at Hampton Bays is a trench, and it is installed behind a bulkhead, actually. So during the bulkhead replacement, we had the opportunity to install this barrier just behind the bulkhead, and now the water flows through the bulkhead, and the treated water is entering Shinnecock Bay.
60s, 70s, when the septic idea was sought out and it just didn't go well for Long Island. Just because it happened doesn't mean we can't remedy it 30, 40 years later when it's not working anymore. It's an island, we can't run away really.
Nature will adjust. I don't know how fast we'll adjust. We try to get the problem down to bite-sized pieces. Because you can't just say, oh, the whole pond is, a mess and no one knows what to do.
What is like a typical day for the both of you out on your boat?
Well, unfortunately, we spend most of the time driving.
Really? Yeah. To get there.
Especially in the summer, right?
Yeah. Now, are you out there in the winter as well?
Yeah, sometimes we're testing groundwater in the winter, and then we have a little heater that we use to stay warm.
Well, we truly appreciate all of your work. We appreciate your time here with the festival. One of the biggest causes for us is to really connect with the communities, connect with issues that are going on locally, highlight them through film. Tonight we have a series of films, showing all about different filmmakers that have captured environmental stories that are really important. And your work is among that. So we really appreciate your time and thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah,
It's a
no,
big part of what we
absolutely.
do.
Is there any last words or anything that you would want to share with our audience?
Realize you're connected to this.
Right.
I really think that's the key to some of the younger generation.
Education.
the key.
Thank you. Yeah, no, this has been great and we appreciate it and we hope to have more conversations with you in the future.
Thank you guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.